Hello, and welcome to your friendly and familiar podcast, Fit the Shoe. Tune in to hear my stories and thoughts. On to the show. So these tiny holes started appearing in my clothing a couple months ago, and it was so frustrating because I was really getting into clothing. I mean, I wouldn't buy expensive clothing, but they were more expensive than what I am used to buying. I'd pay $10 for a shirt. A couple months ago, I was paying $30 for a shirt, and for me, that's a lot. But I felt that I had to treat these clothes properly, hang them on a really nice hanger, hang them on the right side of my closet, and for whatever reason, I had this whole structure down just around these clothing. This is the first time that I've ever done something like that. And so I figured, what the heck, it's a new thing to get into. Why not? COVID is a thing, So there's no telling what we could get into since we're staying indoors 24/7. So I was getting into clothing and clothing patterns, clothing styles, clothing prints. Everything was about clothing. I felt like this was like a sign for me to stop doing that. But here's how it all began. One day I was wearing clothing, just any kind of regular t-shirt one day, just walking around the house. And then I looked at my shirt and I noticed that there were like these tiny little holes, almost like a bug was eating through my clothing. And I thought, this is I've heard of this. This is very weird, but I've heard of this. And I used to work, fun fact, I used to work at a laundromat. Yes, for a short amount of time, I worked at a laundromat. And working at this laundromat, you learn so much about clothing. So when I saw these little holes, I figured, okay, this is like a moth. It's one of those moths that just eat your clothing. And I figured it's easy to just get an exterminator. But I didn't look too into it. I easily just told myself, it's just a hole. I probably got it caught onto something. Not a big deal. A week later, I do my laundry, and the thought comes to my head again to look at my t-shirts to see if there's any holes. I look at all my clothing, and every single one of my shirts that I had washed had holes. Not one, not two, but like 3 or 4. So every shirt was different. There was like 3 or 4 holes in each shirt. And they were all in the same spot. It was really upsetting because like I mentioned in the beginning of the story that all my shirts were like $30. And to me, this is a big deal. If you have a hole in a piece of clothing and you wash it or you wear it, it will start to get bigger. And so that's the frustrating part, that you're wearing this t-shirt and it's just creating a bigger hole, and now the shirt just goes to waste. I had actually spoke to my manager of the property, and I spoke to her and I said, hey, there's these little tiny holes in my clothing. This has never happened. I mean, I've been living here for like a year, in that complex. I'm like, I've been living here a year and I've never seen this. Maybe it's the laundry, like the washer. Maybe it's something to do with or just any kind of laundry thing in general. Like it could be the softener. Maybe it's the detergent I'm using. Maybe it's the actual washer. Maybe it's the dryer. So she told me not to worry about it. She would send some maintenance to help clean and see what's going on in there and try to fix some things. So I figured I'll leave the exterminator thing alone. I don't hear anything from the maintenance guy for like about 2 weeks. And I noticed that these holes were just still appearing. Now it was on every single one of my clothing. And I don't know if this is extra, but I actually had times that I would cry because it was like, I don't know where these are coming from. And like every time I look down, it's like I have a hole in my shirt. It's like I'd wake up, I'd put the shirt on, there was no hole. And then throughout my day, there's just a little hole. And there was no way that it could be I had people telling me maybe it's just the button of your pants that's getting caught onto my shirt. Guys, I'm telling you, the hole was not that big. Like, the hole was tiny, and it was just so frustrating because it wasn't on anything else. It wasn't on a jacket, wasn't on pants, wasn't on in socks, underwear. It was just on t-shirts, and it was all in the same place. Felt kind of crazy. And it was only on my clothing. It wasn't on my husband's. It wasn't on my kids'. It wasn't on anyone's clothing, just mine. So I figured maybe this is God trying to tell me to stop worrying about clothing, and it's not that big of a deal. So I called an exterminator because I was waiting this whole time for the maintenance guy to arrive. And after 2 weeks had passed, I was like, I'm not waiting another second. I get an exterminator the next day. He comes in. He checks the closets. He checks the kitchen, he checks corners and all that stuff. And he comes to the conclusion that there's nothing. And I'm like, dude, you need to find something. Because every time I buy a new shirt, like I didn't even get a chance to wear the shirt and there's a hole in it. And so the annoying thing is when I told the exterminator that, he goes, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you have no bugs. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I don't see any signs of like moths or carpet beetles or anything like that would probably be eating at your clothing. He's like, but I mean, we can like spray and do all that if you want us to. So I said, you know what, forget it. A week after the exterminator came to our house, I had the maintenance guy come in. He checks everything. He goes, we're probably going to need a professional guy to come here. I'm like, oh, this is becoming like such a big deal. Dude, it's just holes. And when I looked up online, like these holes, I saw that people have had that problem, but it was because of their pants. And it was like, or I think it was softener, that if you like put too much softener, it can actually eat away at your clothing. But I even like did my laundry without softener. I tried every single method and these holes were still appearing. And we had the professional come in. He said it could be that there's not enough water in the washer. That's not like filling up to a certain point. I'm like, that doesn't really do it for me. Like, you're telling me that the washer doesn't have enough water. Yeah, I'm okay. I need a real reason. Tell me that there's a little bug that's just been eating my clothing, and I would feel more comfortable with that response than the fact that it might be water. Yeah. So I went ahead and, I always presented the idea to my husband that it could be a bug and that we should get it exterminated and that it was a bad idea to not have our place, sprayed. And he's like, Crystal, I gotta tell you something. I'm getting holes in my shirt. I'm like, okay, I've lost my mind. I know I've clearly went insane at this point because now he has holes in his clothing. I have holes in my clothing. I even moved into a new complex, new apartment and all. And then I decided, you know what? I'm doing this. I'm going to wear all black. Thank you for stopping by. Stay tuned to the next episode. If you haven't already yet, follow me on Instagram at Riley Culture. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at rileyculture@gmail.com.